Hey, it's Clay. How's everybody doing? I'm playing some more Counter-Strike Global Offensive. I'm on the maps Italy, which is a hostage rescue map. And yeah, just having a lot of fun playing this game. We've got 1 day left in the beta till the full game releases, and really excited for this. It's definitely, I have to say, it's as I've gotten a little bit more into it, I think that it is a really strong game. You know, graphically, it doesn't really compare to something like Battlefield 3. You know, it's still running on the old Source engine, which, you know, some people may look as a detriment. But, you know, when I look at this game, I see that this was very, very intentional. You know, I see a game that was created for a specific purpose. And, you know, in a lot of ways, it pays homage to Source. And it doesn't even deny it. I mean, Italy is this was a map from Source. It might even have been from Counter-Strike before that. But almost every part of this game, you know, pays homage in respect to the legend that is Counter-Strike. And, you know, but it makes some really nice changes and updates and modifications. I think it does a really cool job. I mean, there's just some subtle things. The weapon balance, I think, is a little bit more effective. You know, the competitive guys are still going to gravitate towards the Deagle, the AWP, you know, the AK, the M4. Those guns are always going to be at the top. You know, but some of these other guns, they're not too shabby. I mean, the shotguns really wreck people at close range. So does the P90. And, you know, I don't think that the gap between, you know, the highest guns and the lowest guns is as big as it was in Source. And I also think that the way that the buy system is really important to take into consideration, you know, when you're talking about weapon balance in Counter-Strike, because it is so unique. It's, you know, not everyone has the same access to the same guns all the time. It changes. It's dependent on how much money you make. And, you know, because they've kind of tiered it so that the really powerful guns produce less money and some of the more underpowered guns give you more money, it's a very interesting mechanic. So you have certain loadouts where, you know, maybe you're not going to be as successful as an AK, you know, if you go with like a shotgun, but if you get a couple of kills, your potential for getting a big payout, it could be enormous. You know, and going with an AWP I think only gives you like $25 per kill or something, so it's like, it's really measly in terms of payout. So I think it's really cool that they did that. But, you know, when I said that this game is made for a very intentional and specific purpose, I'm talking about making a game that is really tailored for competitive play. You know, the hitboxes are better. You know, there are power weapons. I mean, the way that the game is made is it's made to be, you know, something where competitive play flourishes. And I think that is a really interesting choice, and I really, really respect Valve for doing so because, you know, to be honest, I think that makes it's a little bit of a, I don't know, I don't want to call it a risk reward, but it's definitely not a popular choice. I mean, you look at like the success of Call of Duty and Battlefield, and like some of these games where they're really not driven by a competitive scene. You know, I don't want to group those two together because they are very different, but you know, Counter-Strike doesn't make any bones about it. It is made for competitive play. And I think that is a really cool and interesting move on Valve's part. And, you know, I think that more games should be like this. I think that you should have a high skill ceiling. I think that good players should always be rewarded. And I think that the gap between the best player in the world and the worst player in the world should be really big. You know, because I think that makes a game that is more fun and it's more rewarding. It's harder to get into, you know, and there's going to be some frustration for newer players who are, you know, just getting into it, and they're thinking to themselves, man, this is impossible. I don't know how I'm ever going to get a kill. Now, you can also put in mechanics that help to kind of alleviate that burden, you know, with better matchmaking, you know, maybe servers that are limited to lower levels. You know, I guess Counter-Strike doesn't really have a leveling system, so you'd have to be a little bit creative as to how you actually work that out. But I really think that that is an important element to a video game. I think that, because well, honestly, once people feel like, you know what, I'm as good as I'm going to get, and if I continue to put time and effort into this game, I'm probably not going to improve, I think people get bored, and I think that they really lose interest in games. You know, I think that that is one of the fundamental problems that the Call of Duty series is having right now, is that I don't think a lot of people feel like, oh, you know what, I really want to play the next Call of Duty because, you know, I think I'm going to get really good at it, and I think that it can be really a rewarding game to play. You know, it's such a cheap thrill. But there's no, you don't have to invest anything into it. You don't have to spend time to learn it like you do with a game like Counter-Strike. And I think that that's important. I think we should always encourage that kind of a approach where it takes time to learn a game, and and not saying that every game should be this way, but saying that not every game should be the opposite way, if you understand what I'm saying. Not every game should be easy and accessible for new players. There should be a variety, and I think that with CS:GO, I hope that it gets a lot of attention, because I'd love to see get a big following. And I think that the competitive scene is very interesting, because in one hand, to have a competitive scene, you have to have interest in the game. So it has to be, a game like StarCraft has a pretty wide appeal. There's a lot of people who play it. But then it also has a very high skill ceiling. So it does a really good job of, it works in a competitive environment because it makes for interesting matches. But there's also an appeal, a broad fan base of people who are even aware of the game. I think something like Counter-Strike Source lost interest because it wasn't on the mainstream. It wasn't on people's minds. When people thought of first-person shooters, they started thinking about things like Call of Duty, etc., etc. So you need to have a game that's, on the public radar. It's got some appeal. People want to watch it. But then on the flip side, you also want to have a high skill ceiling so it doesn't become boring. It doesn't become, something where there's not even an incentive to become a good player. You really need both. And I really do think that it's a difficult dynamic, and it's a difficult balancing act, because I think if you go too heavy in one direction versus another, you're going to lose people, you're going to lose interest, people are not going to, even get started playing your game. But on the flip side, if you're never rewarding players for being good, I mean, what's the point? What is the reason for playing a game? When you feel like, I've really put the time in, and I've learned how this game works, and I've become a lot better player, that's a really rewarding feeling. And I think that is one of the biggest reasons why people enjoy playing video games, is for the ability to become good at something, and, to have this confident skill set, and to, just kind of be successful, if that makes any sense. I think that, it's a really important dynamic to have, and it's really fun and exciting to see CS:GO bring that back, hopefully into the limelight. Like I said before, I really want to see this game take off. It's $13. It's so accessible. It's so easy to get into. And really, I think that one of the things about Source is I actually started playing Counter-Strike Source probably in maybe 2007. So at that point, the game was already 3 years old. So if you think about it, by that point, the skill ceiling got even bigger. Because at launch, everyone's kind of on the same level and playing field. But once the game's been out for a couple of years, that's when the skill ceiling really starts to jump up and skyrocket, and you really see people getting really good at the game. And so right now with the release of CS:GO, I think this is a great time to get into it, because, I'm playing on some of these maps. Like I really didn't play much of Italy in Source, because, I just got rocked on a lot of these maps. I got absolutely destroyed and demolished and dominated all at once. And that didn't really make it fun, and that's why I kind of gravitated more towards Office and Dust, is because, it takes time to learn these maps. It takes time to learn the lines of sight. It takes time to learn the traffic patterns and all the little, nooks and crannies where people tend to camp. I mean, all those things take time to learn. And so, getting into a game now is really, really a good time, because, a lot of these guys, one thing that I've been thinking about is it almost seems like players have gotten worse, but I really think that's just because it's a new game. And people are trying stuff out. They're experimenting. They don't really know how the guns work. I was even playing around with the AK in a deathmatch server, and it feels a little bit different. The old burst patterns don't really work in the same way. I was almost gravitating more towards a single shot type of an approach. Goodness, I failed right there. But, it's a new game, and so I think that this is an excellent time for new players to get into it. And I guess we will see. We will see where things go, but, I really like having this kind of variety, and I hope that, some of the bigger AAA titles can learn from a game like this and can appreciate the beauty of making a game that has a lot of depth and making a game that has a high skill ceiling. I really think that's important, and I think that, people have gotten so focused on making a game that is accessible to the public, and, that any newbie can sit down and play, and I don't know, I don't think that's good for the gaming community as a whole, because then you have all these people who are technically, quote-unquote, in the community, but They don't have anything invested. They just sit down and play once everyone, maybe once on a weekend, and they don't really, get to know the game. They don't really get to master the game, and I just think for people to take it to the next level is really it's a good thing, and that should be encouraged, and that should always be something that we're shooting for. So, it's exciting. It's a curious time to see, as we're moving towards, the next gen consoles. Call of Duty is kind of starting to lose its luster, and not even to say, that, and probably this is a topic for a whole nother commentary, but who knows what happened to Call of Duty in the future, but it's been around for a long time. I don't remember exactly. I think 2007 was maybe when COD 4 came out. That recipe, fast-paced, arcadey, lots of kill streaks, has been kind of, played ad nauseum. It's been worked out. It's been, almost overkilled. People have a lot of time into that game, and I think that, at some point, people are start looking for something new. And I think that the community is ready for something new. And it's my hope that something like Counter-Strike, something that has such depth to it, that this would be something that community starts to gravitate towards, because they realize that, these cheap thrills, well, that's only cool for a couple of prestiges, and then you get bored. Whereas with something like Counter-Strike, you play this, you literally, people have been playing AWP, Deagle, M4, AK on Dust 2, literally millions of rounds, and people just get so freaking good at it. So, there's no way that you can ever say that Counter-Strike, gets old or feels, because it has such standing power. So, I'm really excited to see where things go. But yeah, I probably should wrap things up now. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Let me know if you guys are going to get CSGO, and hopefully I'll see you online.